This show is sponsored by Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today is a devoted Army wife and mother with a passion for women's ministry. She's an Army vet and author and the CEO of Our Connection Point. Please welcome Sherry Eifler. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today.
I've been looking up all of your stuff, as I mentioned to you earlier in our pre-show, online, your website, your social media, and of course, I'm drawn to your public speaking background and experience in leadership at John Maxwell. It's for me, really cool to meet with somebody in a profession that I've been working really hard to break into. So I'm going to be picking your brain on that. But before I get started, in terms of asking you questions about that whole experience at John Maxwell, I'm very interested in your Army background. You're an Army vet. You served for 5 years, a lieutenant, and I feel like a sense of pride from you about being an Army wife. And I would love to just kind of dig in there with you a little bit and learn more about your story.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, being an Army wife is such a privilege and an honor because you're getting to support the soldiers or airmen and all of the service members that are serving. And it gives you an opportunity to get a glimpse into what's going on. It gives you an opportunity to live your patriotism in a whole new way. And it's a community of service and volunteering. And I think I shared with you that it put me in a role of, after I got out of the Army serving on active duty, then I became the professional volunteer within the military spouse ranks, and it's just been an absolute joy.
What inspired you to get into the military?
Oh, that's a whole story in itself. So I grew up in a little town. My dad was he kind of said, "You're going to college." So I was like, okay. So I went to college. I thought, okay, I'll be a teacher. That was the thing. And then he was like, well, hon, I think maybe you need some more discipline. Maybe we should look at the Army. And so while I was in college, that summer after my freshman year, I went into and I did basic training. And then my recruiter said, hey, you've already got a year of college down. Why don't you join ROTC? And that is where I found my tribe. Because my freshman year, I was lost because I didn't have that connection. And I grew up doing sports. And when I got involved with ROTC, then I was back in with a team. I was back into leadership roles. I was back into moving forward. And I was like, this is for me. So yeah, that was how I became. It was kind of accidental, and I was guided by my father. I don't know how many other people have been guided by their family into where they end up. But I thought I'd be a teacher, and I came out a medical service corps officer, and it's been such a joy to have that experience behind me.
That's cool. You don't seem like the type. You don't strike me as somebody who needs much discipline. What were some of the things that stood out that your dad thought the Army or the military would help?
Well, it was like I literally was that like freshman who like forgot to go to class. Okay. Just those little things. And he was just like, maybe you just need that reminder that there's more out there for you. now that I was outside of the little town that I had grown up in.
Yeah. I think of the word accountability, when we think about business and life, it's the military provides that accountability. It's sometimes, I'm sure, a little abrupt and a little harsh, a little too in your face sometimes for some, definitely for me, I'm too sensitive. But it certainly provides that accountability that we see in the business world today, of when I'm seeing somebody who is struggling or having a hard time with their job, and sometimes it's just they're not holding themselves accountable for what they can actually do, right?
Yes, accountability is the big thing. There was an accountability. It put me back with a routine, and there were things that I could take. Like when you're in a college course and you're working through college, your achievement is so far away. But when I got into ROTC, my achievements became close to me because I was tangibly reaching things. And like I got to go to airborne school as a cadet. That was, something I had to earn though, because I had to, excel. And so, I've always been a leader. So for me to be back in a place where I was leading people again was a place that continued to push me, gave me that accountability because others were looking to me to guide them, lead them, be their mentor. And so that, yes, accountability is huge, and so I think that's really important, especially as an entrepreneur, because oftentimes we start out as an individual. And if you don't have a group that's outside of you that you can connect with, and they're asking you questions, hey, are you meeting your goals? What are your goals? Where are you going? What are you doing? Then we can flounder. And I think that's what happens, because the average entrepreneur who starts out, they don't make it past 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's usually...
Go ahead.
Yeah. And it's usually because they don't have that accountability. They have this great idea. They have this great vision. But if you talk to anybody who's made it, and you probably can attest to this, but it really, you start out slow, and only a few get to pop quick. But the rest of us, we're on this journey, this marathon that's about 10 years before you really find your sweet spot and are moving forward.
Yeah. And you also said something in terms of the goal setting, in that, college, and we could relate this to the entrepreneurial journey. We could relate it to the C-suite journey. If you're, just trying to climb the corporate ladder, that goal is so far beyond. But you were saying with the ROTC, you had these smaller goals that you were able to accomplish. And by accomplishing those smaller goals, you obviously gain a lot of momentum. You mentioned that you always knew you were a leader. I'm interested in that, in that self-diagnosis, that self-awareness that you had to know that leadership was a quality that you held.
Yeah, and I don't think in high school I never would have called myself a leader, but I always was it's one of those things that I realized looking back. I always was the person that was selected to be the team captain for the swim team, the soccer team, the track team that I was on. And I always had people coming to me and seeking out advice. I mean, basically, I was a coach before I knew what coaching was, as far as life coaching and mentoring. And so I think I when I went to college, I ended up in that identity crisis going, wait a minute, I'm a leader and I have no one to lead. And so, of course, these are all aha moments that you get a decade later, but it's so important as a leader. You're always looking for how can I build others up, because you value people so much, and you know that you're just like, okay, we got to keep going. And I am a natural achiever, so I will naturally do that. And then when I hit ROTC and they were training on leadership, and I was getting accolades because of what I was doing naturally. And that's what I like to do now, is help people discover what are your natural giftings and talents, and to really step into those so that, you're not floundering, you're not trying to find yourself, you don't get stuck in an identity crisis because you're not living how you were uniquely made.
The ROTC also provided something else for you, and meeting somebody who's very special in your life. You want to share a little bit more about that story too?
Yes, I met the love of my life there, my husband, Brian, and it was not love at first sight. When I walked, it was so funny because when we first met, I thought, oh my gosh, who is this guy? He totally did not meet my idea of what a soldier was going to be, because when I walked into the classroom the first time, he was sitting there with a briefcase in front of him. And I was like, no, that does not match up with the military hua, paradigm. But yeah, we met and we connected through. I walked alongside him while he was preparing to go to Ranger School as a cadet, and he was leading me in my journey of becoming and desiring to actually serve in the Army. He had that desire. Me, I was just like, I'm on for the journey and the fun and the adventure, and let's do this together. And so then it was just like, it was a no-brainer. We were going to get married. Even to our cadre, before we even talked about it, they're like, okay, the two of you are going to be getting married, so you need to get married before, I went on active duty after he went on active duty. And so it's kind of a fun tale. I mean, I was an Army wife before I even graduated college. That blows my mind.
And I guess that speaks to why you're so proud to be one, and then you have some 3 lovely children as well that came out of this beautiful marriage. It's nice to hear a story where, like you said, it wasn't love at first sight, but a little bit of a fairy tale where you found something that you were passionate about, and you found somebody in there that you were able to create a life with. Now, you graduated college. And I love this quote that you wrote was, you went from combat boots to Mary Kay beauty consultant. So before we dive into that, you were talking about earlier, you help people find their natural gifts. And so what I'm interested in this is, I guess at the time you went from military and then trying to civilian life. And in the civilian life, what was that like for you to find your natural gifts? What was that transition like for you, going from the combat boots to Mary Kay?
Oh yeah, combat to Mary Kay. So I served for 5 years, and then it was time for me to transition out because I was no longer finding satisfaction in where I was serving, and I couldn't be with my husband. It was like we were constantly being separated by the Army. So I got out. I was expecting our first child because it was time for us to start our family. And then I was trying to, all of a sudden, I didn't have that purpose. So I felt like, really, if I think back to it, I felt like I did that college, freshman year of college. Here I am, I'm trying to find out, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Nobody's telling me what to do. I don't have that same accountability. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to be doing something. So I thought, my dad had that entrepreneur spirit. So he had a career, but he also had 2 separate entrepreneur businesses on the side. And so I saw that in him. And I think that's what made me think, I could do Mary Kay, no problem. My minor is in business administration from college. I've got this. And I later discovered that I am not a salesperson. I really, am not all that much into makeup. I just thought it was something that I could then connect with the women around me that I heard, just military spouses. And so I was trying to figure that out. And then I didn't realize it until after I finally was like, this is totally not for me. And I just dove into just being a professional volunteer and coming alongside and realizing that my natural thing that I had to give to my military wife community was my experience as a veteran, because I could help them. I could bridge the understanding between why in the world is my husband not coming home? Why can't he give me a schedule? Whys? I could fill in the gap and help bridge the understanding and help these women come alongside and support their service member rather than be frustrated with them. And then I would help them get involved and find their uniqueness. And while doing that, I realized that I was actually living who I was made to be, which was a coach and a mentor.
I love that. And I love that it was through volunteerism that you found your kind of path there. What was the moment that you figured out that you didn't want to be kind of like categorized in this business world, and you wanted to move into this kind of, call it non-for-profit space, this volunteer space where you're kind of giving all of yourself to people? What was that like, that moment, that shift there for you?
It was natural because so in the military, for those who aren't familiar with the military, we have actually have an organization to where we pull the family members together and we make sure that they're ready to take over the finances and the responsibilities of the home, and know all the resources that the military provides for us for when our soldier is gone, either training for 2 weeks, away for 3 months, actually on a deployment for over a year. We have to step into all roles and be that single parent. And then my motto is stronger together. So that pulls us in to a community that's connected. And so when I need help, I'm connected with others and I can ask for help from those around me. And so it just kind of was a natural thing because I naturally help people. I naturally take over leadership and organization and administration. So it was kind of just natural.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I think we have this this idea. There is definitely people who are very driven towards money, which is good. That's good for them. That's good for our economy. That's good for so many reasons. And then there's people that are driven towards helping others, and not that the people that are driven towards helping money aren't trying to help others too while getting there. We hope that they are, but also the people that, like yourself here, are driven to helping others. And that resonates a lot with me because I know that when I was having struggles in forming my business, the struggles for me were that, I want to make a lot of money and I want to have a successful business, but I also want to give back. And how do I do both? And I have a coach as well. And I've spoken about this so many times on the podcast, but it just makes sense in this conversation here, in that my coach helped me understand that, like, I don't have to choose one or the other. I could bring them together, and that's why at my company we give back with every policy signed, with every insurance policy signed. To me, that sounds very similar to your journey here, is that you found this higher purpose to give back, to volunteer, to help others. And then as you kind of brought that to culmination, then you also figured out your purpose in coaching and in mentoring and turning that into a business, being able to bring it together. So share a little bit about that journey there, because that's that entrepreneurial journey for you, right? Of being able to bridge your passion and find a way to also live financially sound.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that journey was fun because, like it mentioned in my intro, is I'm passionate about women's ministry. And so one of the avenues of, being a professional volunteer was within the Protestant Women of the Chapel. And so that is basically our women's ministry that helps people. And so I served in numerous leadership positions. And then I was in the process of putting together a retreat for the women, and it was all focused on them doing like personal assessments, getting to understand who they were so that they could discover their purpose, be confirmed in that purpose, and just step into it with clarity and confidence. And I realized that what I was doing for these women, it was like I brought somebody else in to do it, and I was like, this is my dream. This is what I want to be doing. And so I actually hired the coach who I had come in and do all this training with us, and all the light bulbs started coming on. I'm like, this is what I was made to do. This is what I need to be doing with my life. And so a journey began at that point, because in the military, my husband's career, we move every 2 years. So the light bulb comes on, and then about 10 years later, I actually get to step in the door and act on moving into being a certified coach and actually considering getting paid for my passion and moving forward. Thankfully, my husband is an amazing provider, so this is something that I don't have that pressure that some entrepreneurs and people moving from their passion into a professional view. So I've been able to go very slow without pressure. But it's so lovely and just amazing to watch people's light bulbs come on when they realize that how uniquely designed they were made, and they fall into alignment with their true identity, and then they step out with a new clarity and confidence. And so it's fun to be a part of that with people.
That's so cool. And we're going to get into John Maxwell's training and how that was able to really get you obviously certified and all the other things that come out of it. But I have an interesting question for you. It's because of where you're calling in from. So most of the listeners for this podcast are located in the Hudson Valley, New York. And now we're kind of getting a little bit of a national reach, thanks to 10X Stages, of course. Big shout out to Summer for getting us and introducing us to each other. You're calling in from Alaska. And the funny part for me on this, the interesting part for me on this is I have 3 Alaska stories in the last couple weeks, and they're not long-winded stories. They're very simple. So the first one is we were doing a networking event at one of my friend's breweries, the Hudson Valley Brewery. And so I texted him. I said, "Hey, what are you preparing for us when we're coming in for the event?" It was a chamber event. And he said, "Oh, no, I sold the brewery and I live in Alaska now." And I was like, "Oh, man, I can't believe it. Congratulations," right? So then he goes silent. And then I'm at the event, and lo and behold, he's there, and he's still there. And he goes, "I was just pulling your leg. I was just teasing you," right? So I'm like, "Man, you totally got me." He goes, "By the way, if that text would have been like 3 a.m. for me when you texted me." I'm like, "I didn't put the two together. I was just happy for you." And then recently, I run a basketball league, and one of the guys that we were trying to get into the league, I'm texting back and forth with him on getting him in. And he says, I'm hoping to be able to play in the league, but I'm in Alaska. And I go, "Okay, cool. When you get back, let's see if we can make it work." And it did work out, and he was really appreciative that we were able to make it work. And then when I speak with you, you go, "I'm in Alaska." And I'm like, all right, I got to find out about Alaska. I need to know why is Alaska? And here's the thing. Here's why I bring this up. I believe a lot, and I'm sure you're probably in the same mindset in manifestation, in the universe, kind of giving us signs and giving us there's things that we draw into us, right? I always use the Chinese proverb of the teacher will appear when the student is ready, and so for me to hear something more than once, 2, 3 times in a very short time span is when I start questioning why. Even though the first one was a joke, but why did that joke happen, right? And this is what's led to me reading certain books where, one person recommends it, another, and I go, all right, that's it. I got to read this book. That would be Michael Gerber's book was one of them. The E-Myth it was like the 3rd time I said, that's it. I got to read it. And so I'm very interested in Alaska. Now, I understand it's because you move and your husband is probably stationed there now. But tell me a little bit about Alaska. Tell me about the vibe that you're getting there for living there. I don't know how long, but maybe share a little bit about that for us.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, it is magical and majestic all in one. So this morning I'm letting my dog out, and we're coming into the dark season. And so we already have Christmas lights out because the sun doesn't come up until 9 a.m. And so I let her out, and I look to the left, and there's a moose in my backyard. And I'm like, oh, goodness, please, dog, don't see the moose. And so the moose is chilling, and the dog doesn't see the moose. So I was like, whew, good. And so then I walk in to feed the dog, and then I see baby moose come along with mama. So it's magical in that way. I always say that if the moose come to spend the day with me in my yard, all things cease. They get the right to interrupt my day, and I will just enjoy them. And then the mountains are absolutely incredible. And then summers, okay? So we get like excessive light, and then we also get the excessive dark. So in the summer, everything grows huge here. Like we just had at the Alaska Fair, we had the largest pumpkin, over 2,000 pounds. And so it was a record, and and the people are amazing, and they have lots of really cool breweries. So your friend who has the brewery, they have some really amazing Alaska brews here, and I highly recommend if you, I don't know, maybe you need to come out and visit in Alaska because it's incredible.
It's sounding that way for me. And so you're speaking about the excessive light, and this is like such a contrast, that this excessive light, this excessive dark, and then stopping your day to take in the moose, stopping your day to take in the beautiful ambiance and the mountains and everything. As being a coach and doing the work that you do, how does this environment help with mindset? How does it help with growth for you?
Well, really, it's helped me embrace the pause, embrace the power of a pause, because I think so many of us get going, that we don't embrace the power of the pause. And really, when the moose come, I'm like, and it's the power of the pause moment. And it really has helped me really look into, okay, am I pausing enough? Because there's so much to be done. Everybody's to-do list is miles long. But in the power of pausing and reflecting, I find myself gaining a greater strength and a greater focus to be able to move forward. So, and just, nature, especially after I was going through COVID, the biggest thing that I think we learned was the power of being out in nature when we were told that we couldn't. And so really being able to, and when we came here, it was like at the end where things were opening up, so we were able to get out. And so I appreciate the outdoors and being able to reflect, even if it's just me stepping outside and looking at the green tree in my backyard, or trying to find it in the dark.
That's interesting. The power of the pause. So, you embrace it, I embrace it. But so many entrepreneurs, so many business leaders, it's hard for them to embrace because they don't see the value in it. And, sometimes my wife will see me meditating or just kind of doing what you're talking about, just staring out, and is like, how does that work? She's wondering, we'll talk about these things later on. She's going, how do you consider that work? And for me, I have my own story on it, which is the reflection and how, sometimes just through meditation for my speeches, as a public speaker, I come up with a lot of my speeches through just meditating, not even putting pen to paper. It's just through sitting in the meditation, thinking about the speech, doing a visualization while I'm meditating, starting to work out the wording and the idea and the message and everything. But that's how I do it. I'm interested in what goes on for you during that pause. And you mentioned reflecting. And if you could also help encourage our audience in pausing through this story.
Yeah. Well, like you said, sometimes we think pausing is a big pause, and reflecting is a big chunk. And it's not. And so one of the things that I did mindfulness training, and one of the things that I like to share is just a quick thing. It's called STOP. And it's just an acronym. You literally just slow down, you stop, and you take a breath, and then you observe. So it's just a point of observing. And you're observing what's around you. You aren't judging anything. You're just observing what's around you. You're observing what your body's feeling and what your body's telling you. And you're observing your thoughts. And then you proceed. And you can proceed either in a prayerful mindset, you can proceed in a thankful mindset, but it's a moment to just pause, especially and I highly recommend it when you're feeling overwhelmed or after you think you've just experienced a big failure, to just stop. And that'll help you put things into a perspective. It will help you maintain the mindset that you started your day with or you started the month with. I always recommend, focusing on, okay, what is my mindset now, and how am I going to maintain this and keep it? And that one practice will help you. And, and I think the key is we really need to, the power of the pause allows us to connect with our body, because our body will tell us so much. It'll reveal where we're holding tension. It will reveal where where you get those gut feelings and different things, and just the pause is just so powerful.
It's amazing too, like you just said, gut feelings, and I forget what I was just listening to. I think it was probably one of my Audible books, and I can't remember, put my finger on what they were talking about. But the idea was how much control our minds have over our bodies in our health and everything. And, just like you just said, gut feeling is like, where does that term come from? It comes from this feeling that your body creates based off of what you're thinking. And that goes into mental health and everything. And so I love the acronym STOP, because so many entrepreneurs, so many business leaders, we're stressed out. Like you said, the list is long. But if we allow that list to take over our lives, one, we forget what we're really working for. And then two, it affects our health. And so by stopping, that you can kind of reset the body, as you just said. I love that. I love that acronym. It's really, really great. It's very powerful. You've spent so much time in self-development, throughout the years. And John Maxwell is one of the leadership courses or programs that you enrolled in and are now a trainer in. And I'd love to hear about this, because I've heard the name before, but there's so many others, right? What drew you to John Maxwell's leadership courses?
Well, kind of like your Alaska story. It was like my dad. Well, first off, my dad grew up he had John Maxwell books. He had John Maxwell tapes. He actually went out to California and trained under John Maxwell when he was just starting out. And so it was kind of like a heritage thing, a legacy. And then all of a sudden, John Maxwell just started coming in. And then I saw the John Maxwell team, and I could get certified as a coach, a speaker, and this, that. And it was just as I was releasing my first Bible study. So I was like, oh, I need this as a credential, right? And to help me move into the next direction. And it was kind of like ROTC when I went to my first, certification conference and everything to be part of the John Maxwell team. I found my tribe again. They were my people. They were my accountability. They were and then they were resourcing me to be able to do what my passion was, which was to help people who have a growth mindset to choose to grow. So yeah, that's the basics of that.
And, we talked about earlier when I introduced you about our connection point. And you just brought up the Bible study. And in the Bible study, it was called Royal Reflections, the Makings of a Warrior Princess. And I understand that was kind of what inspired the name of your company. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, it was. Because how do I say it? Yes. So our connection point, I thought, I have to have a company, So it was like, for me, it was me praying about it and what is this going to be? And so our connection point, because I'm all about connecting people because we're stronger together and then moving them forward. And the R was kind of like a play on words for instead of, oh, you are, it was R because it was from a royal perspective. It's kind of fun. And so it makes for, a fun conversation, because most people are like, R, what's the R?
Yeah.
And so I get to share that.
It is cool. I was the founder of, I believe is Expedia, and he founded several other companies. He spoke about, this one was a podcast. This was a podcast I was listening to where he was being interviewed, and he spoke about the importance of coming up with a name that's so unique and kind of like creating names. Like Expedia is one of them, and I can't remember the rest of them, but where he essentially creating your own words because of what you just said, that it helps with others, one, remember your name, but it leads to a really great conversation for you to share about your company, because they, what is that? How do I kind of did the same thing accidentally by naming my company Den10, which is named after my daughters Denise and Tenley, and people ask me, what's Den10? What is it? They don't know it's an insurance company, because I also, as you can see on my shirt here, I also don't put it very out there because I want people to ask. So it's such a great, unique selling tool to be able to just name your company something that leads to such a fun conversation. In the bio that you sent over to me, it's something that stood out to me that I also really liked that you wrote in there was blind tenacity. And to me, that's got to go in quotes, blind tenacity. I am so interested in what do you define as blind tenacity?
Well, for me, it was really, my blind tenacity comes out in my stepping into just going to basic training and then choosing to join ROTC. It was like I didn't know everything. But that wasn't going to stop me. I still had the tenacious desire to be moving forward and knowing that anything that I was stepping into was going to take me to the next level in my life. And so I just like to encourage people, yes, we should ask questions. We should, not jump off a cliff. But sometimes in life, we have to, in order for me to step outside of things that could hold me back and get beyond fear, I have to just move forward with blind tenacity, trusting that the next step, that I'm going to land on a solid foundation with my next step. And if I fall flat on my face, I will get up again. And because any failure or anything that looks like a failure is an opportunity for me to learn and to get stronger and connect with others that will be able to pull me up. So I guess that's a long description of blind tenacity.
Yeah, and well, blind tenacity and the way you described it reminds me of another phrase that I've heard said, messy action, to take messy action. And it's the idea, and like you just said, just kind of like conversing about this a little bit, it's the idea of taking chance, taking risk, right? Of not holding back and allowing yourself, as you just said, to fail. When relating this to the entrepreneurial journey, when relating this to the business journey, to life's journey, how do you see failure? What does that look like for you?
Failure just really is an opportunity to learn and grow. Mm. It's a way to go, okay, I tried that, but now what direction is it sending me? It doesn't mean that because there's always something to learn in something. And I think and also one of my first failures was to believe that it was all in the numbers. It's not in the numbers. It's in the one. Mm. And so as soon as I embraced that it was in the one, it's the power of changing one life. It's in the power of taking one step. It's in the power of moving one mountain at a time, and so really it's just allowing yourself to keep doing that. Because when I first started this whole thing, I was going to be like leadership training and doing these team things and all this stuff. And I mean, right before COVID, I was pulled into an Army experiment. I was helping train soldiers. I thought, oh my gosh, this is it, right? I get to work with people that I get them. And then COVID happened. And what I thought was something that I was stepping into and it was going to be incredible, just literally dissipated in front of my face. Mm-hmm. And I could have looked at it as a failure, but instead I was like, okay, what all did I create? What all experience did I gain from this? And that gave me, the foundation to keep moving forward and saying, okay, maybe not for that, but what is that for? Mm. And so, yeah, and I started out, like, somebody told me I had to write a whole bunch of articles on a to get my website up and going. So I am the least likely author, just to get that out there. I am not a writer. It's not my thing. And then all of a sudden people are telling me, you got to be writing. You got to do these blogs. I'm like, who's editing for me?
I love that.
So, it's just, and so at first it was like, if it was not perfect, oh my gosh, it couldn't go there. But now I'll go back and I'll read things because I'll rework things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I published that, because there's mistakes in it. But I learned that just to share, because people need to hear what you're saying. And so I think I got a little bit on a rabbit trail.
Oh, yeah. I mean, rabbit trails are what this is all about. Life is a rabbit trail, right? No, but what we were talking about is failure, and look at what it led to. It led to you writing a book and being an author. And, so we just never know where it's going to take us. And I really like what you said there too, of like, you didn't say it like this, but this is what I got from it, was like, it happens for you. Failure is something, if you embrace it and you can look at it and go, what can I learn out of this? And how can I move forward and change and adapt? That's really what it is, because, we're living this life. And if we're fortunate, we'll make it to 80, to 90, maybe 100, maybe we'll make it a little bit past that. Right. But that's it. We don't know what happens on the other side of this. Everybody can have their beliefs and ideas, but nobody really knows what happens after this. So this is the time that we have. And in that time, to me, there's no time to sulk in the failures, right? It's like, well, what did I learn from it? And let's try something else, because I only got a certain amount of time to fix it. In your writings, you also write about something called CORE, CORE, and it looks like the way that it's spelled out to me is it looks like it's an acronym for something. I'm very interested in what this acronym is and how it works in your life.
I love it. Yeah. So the core identity process was built out of failure, what most people would have said failure, because it brought me to a place when I couldn't do what I thought I was supposed to be doing. Then I realized that really what I was helping people do was reset their identity. And so what CORE is, it also stands for like heart, the heart of us. It's knowing who you are at the heart of you. And so the acronym takes us through basically discovering and solidifying for ourselves what is our character, what are our core convictions, and really sitting down, and we talked about the power of the pause and reflection. This is the power of sitting down with yourself and saying, who am I? And answering it by looking at these acronym things that I identified, which is the C, your character and your core convictions, which basically is identifying your values. And then the O is knowing your operating strengths and your own opinions and why you have those opinions, why they matter to you, and why you will not change them in moments of pressure. And your operating strengths is so important to know what you're strong in, so you're not spending excess energy trying to become something you're not meant to be. And then the R is our rapid responses and our responsibilities. We really have to look at, okay, it's a self-awareness to, and when I work with people, I also help them with communication, because rapid responses can be our communication. They can be how we respond to stress. They can be, all sorts of things, but we have to know who we are, especially as leaders, because leaders who know themselves can lead well through challenging situations. And then the final is the E. It's our esteem and our ego, really sitting into and going, what is my self-worth? Where did my self-worth come from? And where am I placing my self-worth? And it's something that I invite people to first go through it, but then it's something that you come back and you reflect and you pause, because in this process, you always find things that you're like, I need to get better at. And so it's kind of a lifelong process.
So many things in there we talk, we've spoken extensively about on different episodes, especially the idea of learning what your strengths are and doubling down on your strengths rather than trying to focus on your weaknesses. You and I spoke earlier before we went on the air about me, overcoming dyslexia, and rather than forcing myself to read, which I did do and struggled with, just picking up audiobooks and just reading from them and learning so much from them. But something that we don't talk so much about is self-worth and self-esteem. And I'd love to hear maybe some of the tips or ideas that you have around self-worth, because that is something that I see very, very often, and I see it a lot today, where someone's self-limiting beliefs, someone's self-worth is holding them back from success.
Yes. And that is why doing this core assessment is so important, because when you're going through it, you're recognizing your uniqueness. Your uniqueness is coming alive. You're recognizing, okay, this is why, and it gives you a foundation to stand on. So I've literally seen people's self-worth do a complete shift, because they understand who they are, they understand that they have a purpose, and they understand how to step into it. Because what I like to say is, we all are one circumstance in our life away from an identity crisis. And so if we don't know who we are at the heart of us, we will be just like moving around with the waves. It will be able to, knock us off. But if we're strong in who we are, and we know who we are, so that we have that strong self-esteem, which means, for me, I think too many people have tied their identity to what they do, to their roles and everything, and they forget who they are at the core of them. And what I want to shift people's mindset into believing is that who you are is what enhances what you do. Because each of us brings our unique self to whatever role it is that we're doing. Like when you're filling the role as a parent, and this ties back into failure, and something doesn't go the way you want it to go, if you aren't strong in who you are as an individual, you are so tied to that, what you think might be a failure, that it takes your self-worth down. But if you have untied yourself from those roles and say, that is what I do, what happens in what I do does not change who I am, then you have a new power. And so when the circumstances of life are not your first choice, you don't get lost in the waves of the storm. You don't get knocked off. You get to stand strong and get yourself back up when it looks like things are failing, and say, okay, what am I learning from this? How am I stronger with this? And also, what knowing who you are is, and knowing your strengths, it helps you to set boundaries. It helps you to say no to the things that you really shouldn't be doing, and yes to the things that you should. And it also opens your eyes to an awareness to find people that you can ask for help when you need help. Because there again, we're tied to stronger together. Because and especially in the military community as an Army wife, if I get stuck in the belief system that doing everything makes me strong, no, that's not how we're strong. We're strong when we ask for help, because we are one, recognizing, being self-aware and being true to ourselves. And two, we're building up the person, and we're connecting with them and bringing them in and letting know that they're significant and they're needed, and we appreciate them. So we're stronger together. We aren't strong on our own, doing it all on ourselves. We just wear ourselves out, and then we end up on the floor crying. Why?
That's so beautiful. So much to kind of like unravel there, but I think kind of like just sitting there, I almost feel like, listen, you got to rewind what she just said, because it's just what you said it so perfectly in what people, I think, experience and how they identify themselves in the situations and everything. And the only thing I'll add to that is also, tied to what you do, but also tied to what people say or think you do or think who you are, whatever it is. It's really about you. And I love that you called it a power, because you have the power to decide how you feel about a situation. You have the power to decide on how you react to a certain situation. Now, look, it's hard, right? You know that with me, right? It's hard, but I think with the training that you have and that I receive from my coach, it's providing the tools, right? It's providing the tools to be able to pick which tool is important for this moment. So you've actually started developing courses and different programs to help people uncover these tools, because we all have them. We just don't know how to find them in ourselves. And you've developed programs in helping people discover these tools. And I love that you said, like, if I build this program, the people will come. And so I'm interested in some of these programs and how you've developed them and what they do for people.
Right. So I have developed, there's like a free core assessment that I developed so people can kind of discover where they're at in knowing who they are as an individual and where they are in their identity journey. And then with that, there's the core identity process where you can come alongside and we can go through the process together. You can there's a little short course that you can do just completely on your own, or we can do it together. And I'll be rolling out a masterclass again soon where we take a deep dive together, because I believe doing these things in a group is the best way to do them, because then you get that keyword that we talked about earlier, accountability, and you have that connection. And there's something about knowing that you're not alone that makes it so much more powerful. So basically I take you through the whole process and just give you the tools to walk into it. And what a lot of people walk out with is the permission slip to be who they uniquely were designed to be. And so I love to watch the light bulbs come on for that. And I'm actually in the process of creating a curriculum on a platform for the Warrior Princess Academy, because I believe not only should people be doing a Bible study, but I believe that they should learn how to be a small group facilitator and facilitate their own small groups of connection and community. So that's my latest thing. And then I just always, with the John Maxwell team, I have tons of things in my toolkit to help people.
Yeah. And, so now talking about public speaking, because you're talking about helping people be able to lead a group. And that sometimes they want to be a leader, they want to help others, but speaking in front of others is challenging for them. And it's something that I believe we're all capable of doing, probably because it comes a little more natural to me, to be honest. But I experience nerves. I spoke the other night at that networking event I was just telling you about. And, I experienced nerves before going up. But again, going back to the tools, right? I'm a Toastmaster. I've spoken many times. I've taken so many public speaking courses. I've read so many books on public speaking. I ask people, experts like yourself, on their tips and strategies. And so before I went up, I experienced the nerves, which I think are natural. And I did my breathing exercises. I got in my mind of, okay, what do I want to do? What's the message I want to deliver? How do I want the people to feel about my message? How do I want to end it? And how do I want to start it, right? And I started it with gratitude, thanking everybody for showing up. It was a rainy night, and thanking the chamber for allowing me and giving me the opportunity, but then going into all of that. So I'm interested in the tools that you're able to provide as a public speaker, or maybe the tips and tricks that you use for yourself for getting on stage.
Yeah. So, and that is so true. Most people are like, that's one of the number one fears is speaking in front of people, even if it's just a small group. And I think really it comes back to like, I put the stop principle in, like if I'm like feeling the whoo before, it's like you have to put the stop principle in, bring yourself back to that place of center, focus, and be able to move forward. And that's one of the things that I do. Preparation is one thing, especially if you're brand new at speaking. It's having that simple, okay, I'm going to talk. This is my opening. This is the meat and potatoes, and this is my closing. And just being confident that people are showing up because they know you have something to say, and they're not showing up because they don't want to hear you. They're showing up because they do want to hear you. And so your message matters. Your message is important. And I always recommend throwing a little bit of your story into it and making it personable. That helps people connect with you. And then even if people are not looking for perfection. And I think we think that people are looking for people who are perfect. I mean, how many times do people flumble over a word here and there? It's just natural. It's natural conversation. And so part of me pulls back, and like when I'm speaking and I'm training, then it's a little bit more like I have to make sure I get it all right. But if I'm speaking to motivate and to inspire, those are the times that I can give myself freedom and recognize that people appreciate my authenticity over my perfection. So really it's just pausing and knowing yourself, like knowing who you are, and you're stepping out and you're saying, okay, this is who I am, and they're going to appreciate me for who I am.
Yeah. And it's I always mess up her name, but it's not what you say, but how you make people feel. Right.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's exactly it, because if you're delivering something that's encouraging to people, they're going to walk away with something. I think if we take ourselves out of the picture and recognize that when we're called to speak, we're giving a gift. The audience is getting a gift from us. And how we present it is how it's wrapped, but just an opportunity for them to open it and take it with them. And then if you're in a small group and that's where you don't have to be on the whole time. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about leading a small group. I really call it facilitating. It's like you get to set the atmosphere for authenticity, and then you get to be the one who is seeking to understand more than seeking to be understood. Where when you're speaking, you're kind of seeking to be understood. But so that I always recommend, like, one of the big things before you go to speak someplace is to know your audience. If you have done your research and you have asked about that audience and what that audience needs, and whoever asks you to come and speak, what is the message that you want, and you've created a message around that, you can go on and you can step on that stage with complete confidence. And speak shorter. Like, if you're done quick, that is so awesome. It doesn't take, I always think the shorter messages are the best messages because they give people, it's just a nugget enough to be able to take home with them. When I first started out speaking, oh my gosh, I thought that I had to tell them every single thing about whatever it was that I was talking about. And I would get so, like, the teacher in me would just come out when I was speaking, and I was like, no. And then finally I realized, okay, no, I'm overwhelming the audience. So less is more when speaking.
When you say overwhelming the audience, I have my own ideas of this, but I'm interested in yours. How many points do you think? Let's think about a 20-minute, half an hour speech, right? How many points do you think will resonate with the audience in that 30 minutes?
We're fortunate if they bring away one.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe one or two in an hour, but I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so really it's like presenting the same thing in 2 or 3 different ways and connecting it to a story that they can connect with. That's the key. So for all of you out there who are great storytellers, use it to your advantage and just have a little bit of a, so with the John Maxwell team, we would have to do like a 3-minute presentation. What can you say in 3 minutes that people are going to say with them? So it makes you think about, what really do I want this audience or this group of people to walk away with? What is the one nugget? And I think that's a great question. It's, the one nugget. What is the one nugget? And stay focused on the one nugget. Yeah,
and again, a name draws a blank, and I think of some names, but I don't want to misquote this person. But he said, when writing a letter, he said, if I had more time, I would have kept it shorter.
Exactly. It takes more time to craft a message that you only have 2 minutes to share than it does a message that you have 2 hours, because you have so many more words you can share. And in 2 minutes, every single syllable of each word that you speak is so important. And then how you deliver it. And that's another thing. If anybody's looking for speaking tips, make sure that you're fluctuating your voice. You're not monotone, and don't speak too quickly. Even though you are trying, and that's when when you start speaking too quickly, that you're trying to put too much into whatever you're about to deliver, and eye contact. Eye contact is very important.
Yeah, I always try to say, just be very clear and concise. Clear and concise. And to your point of monotone doesn't just mean that, it's that robotic sound. I was following somebody else on social media, a public speaking coach, and he was talking about, if you're always at that high level too, if you're always shouting at your audience, that's not, people wouldn't consider that monotone, but eventually if you're always shouting, you're going to lose them, because that's all they hear is this loud noise, and they start tuning you out. So having that fluctuation is how you kind of keep them engaged and keep them coming along. You're very engaged in your community, and you do a lot to give back. You, of course, started your career in volunteering and in leading, and especially with the ministries that you work with and everything. And one that stands out is the Victor Marx ATP Ministries. I'm interested to hear more about this ministry and why it stands out for you and why it's so important for you to give back.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll just say our military life has been very challenging. And with it, my husband has been on 3 over 1 year deployments while my children were growing up. And it really takes a toll on a family, and it takes a toll on a child. And we came in contact with Victor Marx when he came to Hawaii, and he connected with our oldest daughter in a way that was absolutely incredible, and then brought us, because what they do is they meet people who've experienced trauma, and they rescue them and restore them and put them on a path to living life to the full again, I guess is the best way to put it. And so they met my daughter at a place where she needed more than we were aware she needed. And then we just connected, and we got to know everything that they're doing. I mean, they were in Iraq when ISIS was kidnapping people families just stripping, mothers, daughters, sons, and their organization was on ground, and they were actually going in on missions and rescuing people from ISIS. And now they have an orphanage. And then they're in numerous places. Like if you are into, rescue and helping people through trauma, this is definitely an organization to get linked with. And so when I wrote my Bible study, it was like, okay, everything that I do, and when I started my company, I have to be giving back somehow, because I think it's important to constantly be giving back into the community. And the All Things Possible ministry with Victor Marks really, he started out helping youth, and now it's become so much bigger. And that's just a place that I love to give back into. So $1 from every one of my Bible study books that's purchased goes into the Victor Marks, along with our family gives to the ministry on our own. And because they're changing lives. They're taking people who've been in horrific situations and giving them hope. And that's what our world needs more of, is hope. Hope that no matter what's happened to you, that you can get up again and you can live a life worth living. And I could probably share lots of stories, but
No, that's wonderful. And hope is really, it's what keeps us alive. What keeps us going. It's when we talked earlier about, failing and getting back up. It's hoping that we can get through it. It's hoping that we can succeed again. It's hoping that we will land. So providing that hope is tremendous. And I thank you so much for that, and your generosity in donating. The other thing that you also did is you started a second non-for-profit, the Batista Project. I might be saying the name wrong, so you'll correct me, but it's named after a friend of yours, Maria. And if you would just share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so I also help with the Bautista Project. Marla was a dear military wife friend that I met up in upstate New York when we were stationed at the 10th Mountain. And she has an amazing story on her own. She was homeless, and she was like, Lord, if you get me out of this, I will always serve the homeless community. And that's what she does. She and her husband have started the Bautista Project, and so whatever military community they live in, they walk alongside the homeless veterans. They put blankets together, and they provide meals. They provide just fellowship and connection. And now they're currently in the Tampa area, and she is actually linked in with the food bank, and they provide her food to take to the homeless people down in Tampa Bay. And she trains them. Her goal is to find the people who she can build into to get off of the streets. Because one thing falsehood that we believe about homeless people is they want to be there, and that they made a bad choice or something that put them there. And really, any of us could end up on the street if just the wrong circumstances came our way. And so that's something that wherever I am, I'm involved with the homeless community, because that's been one of the hard things. And it's something that I got from my parents. My parents were always in a benevolence kind of mindset, and they would always do those things. And so I'm just kind of carrying on their legacy.
That's beautiful. And it will go back to the word hope. I'm associated with Hope on a Mission, where with Den 10 we give back to Hope on a Mission. And I met with Karamia, who's the founder of Hope on a Mission recently, and she was homeless. And her whole thought is the same of everything that you just said there, of like, it's not that I want to be here. I didn't want to be homeless. I just didn't know how to get out of this. And without going too far into her story, it's that loss of hope. Is that they lose hope, and it's restoring it. So working with Maria, you doing the work that you're doing with her, and all of the people in Tampa, you're restoring that hope, and that's what helps them get back on their feet. Is when you restore that, when you give them a little bit, when you give them some forgiveness, give them some grace, and help them. when we go to the grocery store by our house, there's a woman who's always standing there with her sign, an umbrella or whatever. And my daughters will ask me, I have my two daughters, Denise and Tenley, they're 7 and 5 years old. Why is she there, or why isn't she working, or whatever it is. And I always say that, I'm like, I don't talk about hope to them. I just say, she's just not ready. She's made some bad decisions, as you said, or, life has been hard on her and she doesn't know how to get out of it. And she's working through that. And that's how I see it for these people sometimes, is they're working through it. They're trying to find a way and hoping that they can find something. So I think it's tremendous work. It's hard work because you have to have a lot of forgiveness, because you see them kind of like climbing and then they spiral, and they climb and they spiral. And the only thing I could relate it to is I just watched this documentary on a coach out in California, Last Chance University, Last Chance U. And he had this one athlete. Did you watch it? No, but so
that
anyway,
sounds good.
Oh, it was so excellent because he had, and I'm just going to talk about this one piece about this, and then we'll move on. Is he had this one athlete who was just a great athlete, and eventually this guy goes pro, but in the moment he just can't keep his frustration, his anger, his emotions in check, and he's just acting out, and he's storming out of the gym. And in these circumstances, like, my first instinct is, all right, well then he's off the team. I don't care how talented you are, you're off the team, right? But this coach, when they do these in these documentaries, they interview them, and he goes, look, this guy is here in my gym, and I might be the only person in his life providing love, providing forgiveness, giving him a space to just be safe. I'm not going to take that away from him, and it's so true. And this guy at the end of the season, the athlete reflected on that. On like, you're one of the only people that I know truly love me and are there for me. And it got him through it. So I think it just speaks such volumes. Speaking of speaking volumes, I am so blessed to have you on my show, because as I was doing my research for you, not only do you offer all of these really great programs, which, by the way, I need you to plug your free course and how people can access it, but not only do you offer all of these awesome programs, these cohorts that you do, all of this coaching and everything, but you're also a paid speaker, and people can book you for their events and have you on stage and come out and perform. So I want to thank you for this hour that we spent together, being able to kind of pick your brain and learn so much more about you. But how can people find you? How can people find out about your courses and everything else that you're doing?
Thank you for asking. Yes, so basically everything is located right at my website. So it's SherryEifler.com, and I like to say it's RRY at Sherry Eifler, EIF as in Frank, LER.com. And so everything is right there. Like, there's clickables to do the assessment. There's clickables to learn about the Bible study. There's clickables to hop on a call with me, because I always think that the best way to get started is for us to just connect for 15 minutes and find out what your next best step is. And so basically everything is there. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram, both at Sherry Eifler Writes for Facebook and at Sherry Eifler on Instagram. LinkedIn, you can find me also. So, but I would love to connect with anybody and the opportunity to speak and share with your audience, or even just to come in and build up your team if you're a small company or even a large one. I have lots of ways that we can do workshops and keep moving everybody forward, because we're stronger together.
I love that. And your book is also available on your website?
Yes, my book is on my website. I'm starting up new. If you're looking to go deeper in your spiritual journey, January 10th is when that is all going to kick off, and you can actually click on and get to know more about what's coming. And I look forward to seeing a few of you out there. So cool.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Of course, everything that you just mentioned will be in the show notes, so people will be able to access it all and be able to click away and find out all this information. I highly recommend looking into the courses that you offer, because I myself have learned a tremendous amount from enrolling in courses like what you offer, whether they were like I did programs from prosperity, mindful living. I'm with Merit Minimier right now, and she had a different cohort. I can't remember the name of that one, but it was for entrepreneurs. But just by experiencing all these different groups and all these different ways of learning, it's kind of like what you just said about being on stage, where if you just walk away with one thing, but at least repeat it over and over and over again, it's kind of the same thing. It's like just a different approach, a different angle, a different way is just expanding and going out of your comfort zone and learning more. So I highly recommend it to everyone. And then of course you have your media kit on your website, which was so cool to see, and people can also book you as a speaker, and I think that they'd get tremendous value out of that as well. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I think at this point the sun has come out in Alaska. Is that right?
No, I'm still 20 minutes out from sunrise. 20
minutes out. Well, I would love to let you get back to enjoying the darkness for another 20 minutes and seeing the sun come up and watching those moose and taking a minute to pause. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. That's DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den10, you're giving back on a global scale. This episode was produced by Uncle Mike at the iHeart Studios in Poughkeepsie. Special thanks to Lara Rodrian for the opportunity and my team at Michael Esposito Inc.